good to be back with you after a vacation to Oregon. We spent wonderful time with my brothers and my sisters. It was absolutely great to be at home with them, but it's even greater to be at home with you this morning. I want to welcome those who are watching online. We are grateful for your faithfulness in watching and for also your commitment to giving through the online platform. Your generosity just blows us away every week, and we're just grateful for that. Today I want to continue our series in the Psalms. We're doing a 10-week series, and these last final 7 videos and teachings that I'll be doing from the Psalms will all contain one word, and I'll get to that in just a minute. The sermon title is called, Has God Unfriended You? We live in a very chaotic time. Nothing seems to be normal at all. COVID-19 pandemic is on the rise. There's rioting still in our streets across America, and political tension on both our state and our federal level is just through the roof. We wonder how our schools are going to open and when they're going to start and what is it going to look like. For those who work in our school system, there's even more chaos. You wonder with the delay, are the benefits going to stop? Are they going to get paid for the month of August? All sorts of craziness out there. We wonder what normal is. We wonder what normal will be like. I have a picture I want to put up on the screen that may reflect how some of you are feeling today. I think for many of us, even Christians, we wonder in the chaos where God is, and God's response is, I know what you're going through. He does know what we're going through. The psalm we're examining today is the 44th Psalm, and it's a psalm about chaos. It's known as a suffering psalm. Their world is turned upside down, and they're wondering, where is God in the midst of it? Hence the title, Has God Unfriended You? Many are wondering, where is God in the midst of all of the stuff going on in our times? In social media terms, some of us wonder if God has unfriended us. That's exactly how God's people felt as they write this suffering psalm. I'm not going to read the entire psalm for you, but in a few minutes we're going to share just a section that will give you a picture of how they felt. First of all, I want to share with you why this particular psalm was chosen. In my reading of the Psalms this spring, I came across an amazing phrase. It's just an absolutely wonderful, special phrase for all Jewish people. I remember when I was in seminary, and I was in Hebrew class, and my professor's eyes would light up when he would talk about this most unusual word. And just a little side note, my professor was a Japanese man. Yes, I learned Hebrew from a Japanese man named Toyozo Nakarai. And during World War II, he was taken into a concentration camp as an interpreter, not held as a prisoner, but to help with interpretation. But here's this most unusual word. It's found in this 26th verse of this chapter, and it's found in each of the next 6 chapters, Psalms that I'm going to be preaching on. The word is simply hesed. In fact, I didn't even spit it out badly enough. It's hesed. You have to get a C-H-E-S-E-D in there, and the more you spit it out, as my professor would say, the better it is. It's translated unfailing love or steadfast love, depending on your translation. For these next few weeks, we're going to be going over this sense of God's unfailing love. Just think about all those areas in our life where people fail us. They say they love us, but they fail us. But God's love is unfailing. We're going to be talking about that. Let me read this section. I'm just going to read verses 9 to 19 in Psalm 44. But now you have rejected and humbled us. This is the psalmist writing to God. You no longer go out with our armies. You made us retreat before the enemy, and our adversaries had plundered us. You gave us up to be devoured like sheep. You've scattered us among the nations. You sold your people for a pittance, gaining nothing from their sale. You have made us a reproach to our neighbors, the scorn and derision of those around us. You have made us a byword among the nations. The people shake their heads at us. I live in disgrace all day long, and my face is covered with shame. At the taunts of those who reproach and revile me, because of the enemy who is bent on revenge. All this came upon us, though we have not forgotten you. We have not been false to your covenant. Our hearts have not turned back. Our feet have not strayed from your path. But you crushed us and made us a haunt for jackals. You covered us over with deep darkness. And that leads me to my first point. In the midst of the chaos, it is time for the church and for you and me to wake up. In the midst of the chaos, it's time to wake up. This week, as I was discussing the sermon with one of our church leaders, he reminded me that it was my responsibility to not only just preach God's word, but I had a responsibility to protect us from the harm of the world. So I want to play a couple of videos for you, and they'll start in just a couple of minutes. The first one addresses the fact that in our country, there seems to be a demise of Christianity. And if you're not aware of it, it really is a time for us to wake up and realize the chaotic reality around us. For there are those in our country who want to see the close of Christianity. I want to play one video. It's a video of a congresswoman from the state of Minnesota as she shares her thoughts about Muslims.
Education is one of the most important areas that Muslims have to address. And while our final objective, is not just to become part of the system that we experience now and that we see, our final objective is to create our own Islamic systems, and not only create Islamic systems for Muslims, but to look at all the other people who are sharing this country with us as potential Muslims. And if we look at them as potential Muslims and feel that we have the obligation, which Allah has told us, to try to bring them into the same style of thinking, into the same way of behaving, into the same objectives that we have, then we have to have some way that we can communicate with them and some way we can work with them. And in that long-range process of making America Muslim, all of America Muslim, then we have to have some actual short-range goals. We have to have some way of dealing with them and know how we're going to deal with them and in which ways, and be very calculated about it, or else we will not accomplish our goals.
Okay.
It's pretty frightening when we realize how calculating and strategic the Muslims are to take over America and make us a Muslim country. But it gets even worse. I want to play a second video from a house mom. She's just an everyday, ordinary lady who speaks about the goals of communism. And these goals were presented in 1963, on Thursday, January 10th, 1963, to the U.S. Congress by a guy who wrote a book called The Naked Communist. And she shares just a few of his goals. And we're going to play that video for you right now. It is a real eye-opening video if you think communism and socialism isn't taking over our country. Let's play that video right now.
Hey guys, I don't normally do this. Occasionally I'll read a Bible story and post it on a ladies' Bible class group page, but I feel really weird about making videos of myself talking, but I know a lot of times people tend to, especially in this day and age, will watch a video and will listen to a video before they'll actually read stuff. I guess it's just human nature to be lazy, I don't know. But anyway, came across something I was out on my lunch hour, waiting in line at the fast food place to get my food, and just scrolling through Facebook, and looking at my doggies. But I was looking at again, scrolling through Facebook, stumbled across some news article and was reading some comments about the state of affairs in America today, and it just really makes me sad. But someone mentioned that I think their comment was something like the words of the naked communist are coming to be, and I thought, what? So did a little bit of Googling and realized that there was a book written by a man named Cleon Skousen. Mr. Skousen was an American citizen. I think he was a member of the FBI, but he don't know much about the guy. But I did Google something, and I printed this off to look at a little bit closer when I got home tonight, and I've done that. And I just want to share some stuff with you guys that you may not know. I hope we can all agree, or most of us can agree, that communism never ends well. If you don't believe me, just look at history, look at all the communistic countries, and look at what communism has done for them. Anyway, just wanted to read, I'm not going to read all of these, but I highlighted some points because this was read, apparently, Current Communist Goals. And this was read in January of 1963. This is even before I was born. 1963. Keep in mind that that's when this was read in the U.S. House of Representatives. And history teachers, you all can correct me if I'm wrong or comment and expound a little bit more about this man. Again, I don't know much about him, but he wrote a book called The Naked Communist, and this is apparently an excerpt from that was read to our U.S. House of Representatives in 1963. Here are some of his points. Current communist goals. These are goals of the Communist Party. Number 6, provide American aid to all nations regardless of communist domination. Number 11, skipping down, promote the UN as the only hope for mankind. If its charter is rewritten, demand that it be set up as a one-world government with its own independent armed forces. There's a couple of them. It gets better. Number 12, resist any attempt to outlaw the Communist Party. Number 13, do away with all loyalty oaths. An oath, I hope you know what an oath is. Like when someone takes office, they swear by an oath or affirm by an oath. It's like a promise. Loyalty, what popped in my mind was the Pledge of Allegiance. Do away with all loyalty oaths. Number 15, capture one or both of the political parties in the United States. Capture them. Number 16, use technical decisions of the courts to weaken basic American institutions by claiming their activities violate civil rights. Number 17, listen to this. Get control of the schools. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. Soften the curriculum. Get control of teachers' associations. Put the party line in textbooks. Number 18, gain control of all student newspapers. Number 19, use student rights to foment public protests against programs or organizations which are under communist attack. Number 20, listen to this one. Infiltrate the press. Get control of book review assignments, editorial writing, policy making positions. Number 21, gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures. And every time I turn on my television, you can't get away from it. Even the late night comedians who are supposed to be entertaining us with comedy, it seems like they're going to bust if they don't have something political to say. Number 22, continue discrediting American culture by degrading all forms of artistic expression. An American communist cell was told to, quote, eliminate all good sculptures from parks and buildings, substitute shapeless, awkward, and meaningless forms, end quote. Number 23, control art critics and directors of art museums. Our plan is to promote ugliness, repulsive, meaningless art. And I have seen a little bit of that. And what I've seen, you're criticized because it's an art form. Number 24. This was a wow one for me. Eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech and free press. Number 25, and we have arrived. Break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio, and TV. Tell me we're not there. Number 26, present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy. Number 27, infiltrate the churches and replace revered religion with social religion. Discredit the Bible and emphasize the need for intellectual maturity, which does not need a religious crutch. These are goals of the Communist Party. Keep this in mind. Number 28, eliminate prayer or any phase of religious expression in the schools on the ground that it violates the principles of separation of church and state. Number 29, discredit the American Constitution by calling it inadequate, old-fashioned, out of step with modern needs, a hindrance to cooperation between nations on a worldwide basis. Number 30, discredit the American Founding Fathers. Present them as selfish aristocrats who had no concern for the common man. Number 31, belittle all forms of American culture and discourage the teaching of American history on the ground that it was only a minor part of the big picture. Number 32, support any socialist movement to give centralized control over any part of the culture, education, social agencies, welfare programs, mental health clinics, etc. I'm almost done. Number 33, eliminate all laws or procedures which interfere with the operation of the communist apparatus. Number 34, eliminate the House Committee on Un-American Activities. Eliminate it. Number 35, discredit and eventually dismantle the FBI. Number 36, infiltrate and gain control of more unions. Number 37, infiltrate and gain control of big business. Number 38, transfer some of the powers of arrest from the police to social agencies. Treat all behavioral problems as psychiatric disorders which no one but psychiatrists can understand or treat. Number 39, dominate the psychiatric profession and use mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose communist goals. Number 40, here's a big one. Number 40, discredit the family as an institution. Encourage promiscuity and easy divorce. Number 41, emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of parents. Did you get that? Let me read it again. Number 41, emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of parents. 42, create the impression that violence and insurrection are legitimate aspects of the American tradition. That students and special interest groups should rise up and use united force to solve economic, political, or social problems. There's a few more that I won't read. Those were the ones that stuck out in my mind, and when I read them, I was floored. I'm sure you've heard the old saying, you need to know your history or you're doomed to repeat it. Guys, I pray that we will wake up and we will not allow this to happen in the United States of America. We're not perfect. We never have been. We never will be. But I hope that most of us at least can agree that communism is not where we want this country to go. It's not what I want for myself. It's not what I want for my children or my children's children. It's not what I want for yours. Do your history. Research what communism has done for countries that have had it. And pray. And then go out and make a difference. Pray for our elected officials, every one of them. Pray for the heads of families. Pray for your local churches. Act like a decent human being. Teach your children and grandchildren respect. I don't want to see us go down the path of communism. But again, this was written, or this was read, in January of 1963 in our U.S. House of Representatives, and we better be paying attention. God bless.
Go ahead.
It's a very scary thought to realize we're already there. The family is under attack, the church is under attack. Someone has rightly asked why the churches locked down and stores like Home Depot were open for so many months. One cynic responded that he sent a letter to all of his people in his church, an email to all of the people in his church, and he said, "This Sunday we're meeting in the plumbing department at Home Depot. Bring your Bibles." Now that's funny. But that's about how it was during the lockdown. Point B, it's time for the church to stand up and be counted. Let me say first off that during times of suffering, persecution, and chaos, the church and God's people have always grown. In fact, most of the time there was revival in the times of our greatest challenges. So while things are chaotic at best today, I think that the church has more opportunities than ever to reach people. But it's time for the church to move off the sideline and become proactive for Christ. Some are truly suffering, just as people did in the time of this song. But it is time to stand together with Christ and with your church family. So let me quickly look specifically at two key verses in the 44th Psalm. They are the first verse and the 26th verse, the last verse. So if you have your Bibles, I'd ask you to open to verse 1. I'm going to read it for you now. Point number 2 is, in the time of chaos, we need to remember our God. In the time of chaos, we need to remember our God. So let's see what the first verse says. We have heard it with our ears, O God. Your ancestors have told us what you did in their days, in days long ago. So here is the premise. We are sometimes a forgetful people when there is much that God has done. These things are good to remember, and our congregation, for our congregation, and we need that encouragement. We need to remember the past, the present, and the future. But sometimes we are forgetful. So the story is told of an 80-year-old couple who were having problems remembering things, so they decided to go to the doctor to get checked out to make sure that nothing was wrong. So when they arrived at the doctor's office, they explained to him what was going on, and he said, I think you're all right. I think everything's physically okay, but I want you to start writing things down. Every time you do something, just write things down. The couple thanked the doctor and they left. Later that night, while they were watching TV, the old man got up from his chair and said to his wife, asked, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to the kitchen." She said, "Can you bring me a bowl of ice cream?" He said, I can. She said, "You probably better write that down." No, he said, "I can remember ice cream." He said, and then she said, "Well, I would like some strawberries on top of it." "You'd better write that down because I know you'll forget that." He gets exasperated. He says, "No, I can remember that you want strawberries on your bowl of ice cream." She replies, "Well, while you're there, you might as well put whipped cream on it." "I know you'll forget that, so write that down." With irritation in his voice, he says, "I don't need to write it down. I can remember it. I don't need to write it down." He fumes, he goes into the kitchen, and about 20 minutes later returns from the kitchen and hands her a plate of bacon and eggs. She stares at the plate for a minute and says, I knew you were going to mess it up. You forgot my toast. Now that's funny. That's really funny. But that's how forgetful we can become. In fact, I was talking to a lady in church this morning who was struggling with the area of forgetting. And I told her we all struggle with it. I'm even going to talk about it in my sermon. In fact, I have a brother that spent 20 years in the Navy, and in his last duty station, he lived about 45 minutes across Jacksonville from the Navy base that he was on. And when he would leave the Navy base at the end of his shift, and he would drive home, before he would leave, he would call his answering machine and leave a message so it would tell him what he needed to remember to do when he got home, because in that 45 minutes, he would forget what he was supposed to do. We all get that way. And the Old Testament is clear. We need to remember our God. In times of chaos, we need to remember our God. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sins and will heal their land. We need our land to be healed. We need our lives to be healed. And you know, if we're praying and we're seeking God's face, it's pretty easy to remember that, what God has continued to do for us day after day after day. Point number 3. In a time of chaos, we need to be rescued by God. In a time of chaos, we need to be rescued by God. Now let's get to that key verse, that Hesed verse. You see, not only do we need to remember God, we need to be rescued by his unfailing love. So the psalmist pleads with God in the final verse. This is what he says. This is addressed to God. Rise up and help us. Rescue us because of your unfailing love. That's that Hesed, that unfailing love. Rescue us. We need as a nation to be rescued. That's point A. We need as a nation to be rescued. We need to turn our eyes upon God and lean on him. We need to be rescued as a nation from the corruption and the chaos of our country. Brenda and I spent nearly 3 weeks in the Portland, Oregon area. And do you realize that the entire time that we were there, and it's still going on today, there were over 7 weeks now, there have been violent protests in downtown Portland. Still going on. We were safe. We weren't at risk. But our country needs to be rescued. Our country needs to turn back to God. Point B, as a sinner in need of grace, we need to be rescued. As a sinner in need of grace, we need to be rescued. As much as our country needs to be rescued, I know there are people in this room today, and certainly in our lives, who need to be rescued by God. The chaos in life has left them hopeless and living in despair. But we need to realize we're all sinners in need of God's grace. And that is calling on God to rescue us, or in some translations, redeem us. That's what the psalmist was asking. He was asking for God to rescue and redeem us as individuals. The most memorized verse in all of the Bible is John 3:16. Let me read it for you, but I'm also going to include verse 17, because I think verse 17 is key. So verse 16 and 17, John 3. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. And then verse 17, for God did not send his Son. This is the reason God sent his Son into the world. God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. He sent his Son to save you and me from our sins. Verse 17 seals the deal. God sent Jesus to save the world, to rescue the world, to redeem the world. That means you, and that means me. So if you're here today and you feel ready to cave in to the chaos around you, please know that you have a rescuer, and his name is Jesus. You know, our conclusion is very simple. It's very simple, these words. We all need God's amazing grace. Yes, folks, we all need God's amazing grace. We're going to close with a tremendous Jeremy Camp song called This Is Amazing Grace. It even talks about the redeeming and the rescuing of God's people. We all need it. We need to be free from the sin and the guilt that comes with sin. And that's available to us in the name of Jesus. Won't you come now and be rescued by a gracious God?